It's July 4th, and I don't feel like celebrating. It's America's 250th anniversary, and it feels to me like the entire government has just been raining on our parade, making it less and less a thing to celebrate. It's also the middle of an excellent, amazing World Cup, and I am here to rain on that parade. You see, there was this cute story that made everybody, myself included, laugh just a little bit. Like proof that the World Cup really is people coming together, overcoming their differences, and celebrating through the love of sport. The sport called soccer, association football, if you're nasty. This story brought everybody together, made everybody laugh, and even I, while I was on vacation, which is when this happened, which is why this video is coming out now, even when I was on vacation on limited internet access, I clicked on the little ESPN story to hear all about the drunken Scotsman in Boston. However, our country has a white supremacy problem, which is why I'm having a hard time celebrating this July 4th. And I would say this tournament does too. And this story, or more specifically, the way in which this story went unquestioned and unexamined, is evidence of both. So what is the story, right? June 17th, ESPN. Scotland fans drink Boston dry as local bars run out of beer. Funny, perfect fluff story, right? It made the local news in Boston. It was in like Dallas and LA. It made the national news stories. It made Reuters. It made the New York Times. It went international. On the BBC, there was a story, how the Tartan Army conquered or captured the hearts of Boston. All the podcasts I listened to. The football podcast, Soccer If You're Nasty, all the football podcasts, all the football YouTubers at least mentioned it with a little laugh because, of course, it's very, very funny. But let's go one step deeper, okay? The same way that when the World Cup started, all of a sudden, all the dead migrant workers who were buried underneath the stadiums where Mbappe and Messi delighted us all, the same way that we instantly forgot that, I think we're forgetting the iniquity of the government of the United States of America. I think we are forgetting the white supremacist structures that are being put in place. I think we are forgetting the iniquity of FIFA and its greed and the ways in which the greed and iniquity of FIFA and the white supremacy of America tend to go hand in hand. So I'm here to talk about this not because it's the most important thing to talk about, but because systems of power and marginalization function on what is done. Of course, that's how they work, but also what is unsaid, what is unquestioned, the things that we just let pass over us and not think about. So what makes us laugh, and what is the real story about drunken Scotsmen in Canada? Because I believe it is actually a tragedy, okay? So we know why it's funny, okay? What makes it funny? Drunken Scottish folks vandalizing Boston, making lots of loud noises, singing chants, wearing kilts, the whole thing. But why is it a tragedy? Now, before I get into this is not the fault of Scotland or Scottish people, not at all. I should mention, I'm descendant from Clan Lamont and Clan Campbell, which if you've ever been to Boot, Scotland, or if you've ever been to Castle Toward, that's quite an amazing combination. I house sat in Bearsden, in part of Glasgow, for a month. I'm named after a Scottish island, okay? That's basically my people. This is not their fault, okay? But what makes this a tragedy? And it's not even the Scottish part, although that is a tragedy. Ireland has the famous reputation and stereotype of having major alcoholism problems, but by many metrics, the alcoholism epidemic in Scotland is greater than it is in Ireland. That level of problem, okay? I'm not sure that we would feel comfortable laughing at drunken Irish fans the same way that we were comfortable at laughing at drunken Scottish fans. But that's not what it's about. To me, that's not what it's about. It's not about who was partying in the streets. It's not about who was vandalizing. It's about who wasn't. Because who was Scotland playing? What made them go to Boston? Why were they there? They were there for the first group stage match, the Haiti-Scotland game. And truth be told, if I were in America and not in, at that point, the outskirts of Hamburg, I would have gone to this game, no doubt. That was the only game I circled on my calendar as a game I really wanted to go to. Obviously, I have friends and family in Boston, and I love Foxborough Stadium, which is not the same thing as Boston. And I really wanted to see Haiti play for the first time since the Duvalier regime in 1974. But I wasn't there, and I wasn't there because I was somewhere else. But who else wasn't there? Who else wasn't at this game? The World Cup is where the world comes together to celebrate all together, and everybody goes and flies and intermingles and talks and gets drunk and puts traffic cones on top of sculptures like the Scots did. It's all fun. Who wasn't there, everybody? The Scots were there. Who wasn't there for the Haiti-Scotland game? The Haitians were. Why weren't the Haitians there? I'm not saying there were no Haitians. Of course there were. And if you see the cutaway of the crowds, there were some there. Some. But disproportionately few. Why? Of course, because of the racialized travel ban. The Trump administration, led by Stephen Miller, has put forth all these travel bans on mostly African and black countries throughout the world. So it is literally illegal for Haitians to travel to America. I'm sure there were some exceptions made here and there, but what that meant was it was essentially impossible for Haitian fans, for Iranian fans, for Senegalese fans to travel to the part of the world where the World Cup was happening. So it wasn't really a World Cup, it was a part of the World Cup. And that part of the world was disproportionately white, which therefore made this a partially white supremacist World Cup because of the white supremacy that is consistently being reinforced at all levels of government and education and politics and voting throughout this entire country. A week after this moment where we're all celebrating these Scots who are there to celebrate this game against Haiti, a week after that, the Supreme Court itself upholds the expulsion of 350,000 Haitian citizens who are in America under temporary protected status. This means there are 350,000 people being sent to a country that is ravaged by instability, by gangs, by poverty, by disease. People who came here the right way, who came here and largely filled labor gaps, people who came here and helped our country immensely, and they are being kicked out. And we have a moral need to not kick them out. The whole, July 4th, bring us your huddled masses, that whole thing. The fact that one of the things, probably the main thing that makes America great is actually the immigrants. That's actually what makes us great. That's actually how we became the country that we are. Apologies go to those who were here before, but that's actually the strength is our diversity. But there's also the obligation, and I have an entire series on this channel about the class I taught on Haiti. Please watch it, where you can learn about how America robbed Haitian banks at gunpoint, stole their land and gave it to American companies, occupied them without congressional approval while testing out bomb systems on civilians, supported dictators, supported with countless European slave states against them, re-elected somebody who called it a shithole. To say nothing of the fact that many Americans now believe that Haitians eat dogs, even though no Haitians have ever eaten dogs ever. That was just something that was made up by a racist politician who's trying to who's trying to Christ wash his image by talking about the people of Springfield, Ohio, eating dogs, which they weren't, which they didn't, which he admitted. The Haitians have been, and sadly continue to be, the scapegoats of the world. Whenever global blackness needs to be questioned or threatened, it is almost always the tip of the spear. The first people to get it, the first people to be targeted and attacked are the people of Haiti. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's probably because they had the audacity to rebel against slavery. So, okay. That's one whole, that's two layers, right? Not allowed to be there, and then they're being kicked out. And so the whole time that I'm reading these stories and I'm thinking how cute it is, the stories were everywhere, and we're paying attention to that as opposed to the TPS being reversed. But let's imagine that these Haitians were allowed into the country. Let's imagine that the immoral travel ban, the white supremacist travel ban, was overturned. Could they even make it? Could they even afford to come? This is the other part. Now listen, race is not a determiner of class, but often, given the nature, the white supremacist history of Our entire civilization, not just this country. It often means that many countries that are majority black are poorer than many countries that are majority white. Not all, but many. So how could the Scots afford to come? Now listen, the Scots are not like the richest country in the world, but their average per capita income is $53,000 a year. Compare that to Haiti, which is like 30,000 per capita. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. No, $3,000 a year per capita. $3,000 a year is what an average Haitian makes. So when Gianni Infantino makes his pricing and the dynamic pricing and everything is so expensive, yes, it means that I probably won't go and take my kids because, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, so I can't afford to take my family to go see Haiti play Scotland because I looked at the average ticket price and it was $600. And that was low. That was low. It was a $600 ticket. That was the average ticket price for that game in Boston Stadium. And Foxborough is not Boston, but I guess we're calling it that. So if you do the math, that's 20% of an average Haitian's paycheck, yearly salary. 20% of their yearly salary. If we were to scale that to Scotland, that would mean every Scot who is there would have had to pay $10,600 for a single ticket. That's not for 2 tickets. That's not for 3 tickets. That's not including the exorbitant hotel costs. That's not including the $170 parking. That's not including the upcharges on the trains and the shuttles. That's not including the food. That's not including any of that. There was no way. There was no way. So this game, which should have been Haiti's best chance to win, because Haiti is not the best team. Let's remember, the Haitians did not have a home field when they were qualifying. They had to play all their games in Curaçao. Their home games were away games because the one place they would have played is currently occupied by gangs. They are scattered all over the place. They barely have any place to practice or organize or get together. Even though they're highly talented, the fact that they even qualified for the first time since 1974 is a miracle. This was their best chance to win because, truthfully, Scotland is not that great of a team. Hey, I say this as someone with Scottish origins, okay? Even with Scott McTominay, they're not that good of a team. But all of a sudden, this becomes a home game for Scotland, where all of the Bostonians were completely enraptured by these lovable, huggable, hobbity Scots. That's what happened. Of course it happened. It would have happened to me if I were there and I were unquestioning. Well, the Haitian team, I'm sure they're fine, but all these cute Scots are drinking all of our beer. You think you can outdrink a Bostonian? I guess you can. Maybe you're wondering, hey, Boston is like one of the highest, is one of the spots with the most of the Haitian diaspora in America. There should be a lot of Haitians there. Now, of course, there could have been, right? And there were. Okay, Haitian immigrants on average earn $10,000 less than other immigrants to the United States of America. I'm not saying that's only because of race, but I'm sure that plays a factor. So, but still, their average income is $65,000 a year, which is, more than the Scots. But listen, would you go? You tell me, would you go? Would you put yourself through a security checkpoint? Would you put yourself in close proximity to ICE if you were Haitian? Even if you were here legally, even if you were a citizen, would you go anywhere near those jackbooted thugs? Because I got to remind you, what we've already seen so far from ICE was the beginning. That was the appetizer. That was the beginning of the meal. That was not the actual bad part. In Germany, Kristallnacht was the beginning. It wasn't the ending. That's what we saw over the last 6 months. Now that the Supreme Court has supported it, the mass deportations that we're about to see are about to make everything even worse and makes you, if you say even God bless America once today, you should be shuddering in shame because of what our country is doing in our name right now, okay? That's what's about to happen. Would you put yourself in that position? If there was anything on your record, anytime you overstayed a visa for a half an hour, anytime you got a parking ticket, even if you didn't and they wanted to make an example out of you, would you go? But let's do one more thought experiment, shall we, everybody? One more thought experiment. What if all of this was reversed and Scottish people were on a travel ban, okay? What if Scottish people were impoverished through centuries and centuries and centuries of organized and coordinated white supremacy against them? Okay? or non-Scots non-Scot supremacy. Please watch my videos to see the history of that. Okay? Let's imagine that the Haitians are rich enough to come to America and to celebrate. Would the headlines have been the same if there were thousands of Haitians getting drunk, screaming, singing, and vandalizing in Boston? Would the press, the police, the politicians, and let's be honest, Bostonians, the people of Boston been so chill? Would they have thought it was so funny? Would the headlines have been, how the Grenadiers and the Haitian army conquered the hearts of Boston? Or would it have been a crackdown? Would it have been a problem? Why did the Scots feel so comfortable to go into another country that is mostly run by a totalitarian regime and make a big mess and do all that? It's the unquestionedness of it that I'm getting at. It's the unquestionedness of it. If all the Scots were black, there's no way they would be vandalizing. There's no way they would be screaming and making a mess because they know the reality that the police is not enforced equally on them. It's not the Scots' fault. It's not our fault that we're white, dreadfully handsome, funny, full of joy, and suffering from crippling addictions, okay? What I'm saying is that to rejoice in this moment is to tacitly accept the terrible realities that made it possible. That made it that this whole World Cup, the home team advantage is going constantly to imperial powers with a rich, mostly, or at least not mostly white, but with a rich white power base. You know, think about the DR Congo versus England game. I mean, it was an amazing game, and Mbemba basically won the game. They really should have won. England looked like trash. And it's not the English fault that the stadium was all white and red with St. George's Cross everywhere, but it was America's fault that there weren't more Congolese people there because they're also on the travel ban. So it's like everywhere you go, and listen, I'm supporting France in this World Cup, so I'm being a hypocrite. I'm not saying that I'm innocent or clear, but I'm just saying we need to be questioning these things. And also, supporting France is important because there is a rising right-wing xenophobic force in France, and the victory of such a non-hegemonically white team means good things for it. Slightly helps stem the tide against white supremacy in France. It doesn't do that much, but it does something. But anyways, I'm supporting France, so I'm a part of the whole problem here. But it's a problem that I think we need to be talking about and not just laughing. Because the tragedy of the story is that it was so popular and unquestioned. Iniquity thrives when people just accept and don't ask. So that instead of talking about the expulsion of Haitian immigrants, we talk about algae in the reflecting pool. Instead of talking about the lack of Haitians or the marginalization of Haitians, we're talking about the partying Scots. It's a left and right problem. This is not a Fox News and an MSNBC, one or the other. This is everybody all together collectively forgetting and collectively supporting this unintentionally white supremacist story. Thank you very much. I'm going to go watch the France and Paraguay game. Have a good World Cup. What did you think? Did I ruin your parade? Did I piss on your parade, as Tom York would say? I hope so. We need it in this country. There's the camera.